Picture this.
Yeah.
It is like 95 degrees outside.
Oh, and the humidity is just completely off the charts.
Right, exactly. It's miserable. And your AC is blowing warm air.
Which is the worst possible timing.
Totally. So you do what you've always done. You call a local HVAC technician out to your house, and you're just hoping for a quick, cheap $150 Freon top-off to get you through the rest of the summer.
Just a quick fix. Yeah.
But the technician takes one look at your unit, puts down his wrench, and says, I legally can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and your immediate thought.
I mean, you think you're being scammed.
Right.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
You immediately think he's trying to squeeze you into buying a whole new system. But he's not. He's actually, he's just trying to keep himself out of federal trouble.
Yeah, it's a massive shift in how home maintenance works. And honestly, it's catching millions of homeowners completely off guard right now. The underlying rules of the game have just fundamentally changed.
Well, welcome to this Beep Jive. Today, we are looking at a fascinating, really eye-opening interview with Dave Hartzell.
He's a great source for this.
He really is. He's a master HVAC veteran. He's got like 45 years of experience working on the tools, operating out of Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
Right in the thick of it.
Yeah. And he's been laying out the absolute reality of the EPA's recent regulatory changes from October 2024. So our mission today is to figure out exactly why the era of the cheap AC top-off is just dead.
Completely dead.
And how this fundamentally changes your relationship with your HVAC contractor. And, most importantly, how you can avoid getting ripped off in 2026.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's wild to me that a seemingly boring federal update.
It really sounds so dry on paper.
Right. It's something called the AIM Act, the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. And it is about to directly impact your wallet the very next time your thermostat acts up.
It really does sound like inside baseball at first glance, just a bunch of bureaucratic acronyms coming out of Washington. But to understand why your repair bill is going to look completely different this year, we kind of have to establish a baseline.
Okay, lay it on us.
So the refrigerants used in your air conditioner, these are chemicals known as HFCs or hydrofluorocarbons.
Right, like R-410A, right?
Exactly. R-410A and even older ones like R-22, they've actually been regulated by the EPA for about 30 years.
Okay, so regulation isn't new.
No, not at all. But there have always just been these loose guidelines about how technicians handle them, mainly to protect the ozone layer. But the AIM Act introduces a totally new framework. It's called the Emissions Reduction and Reclamation Framework.
And that's what changes everything.
It changes the game entirely. It moves the entire HVAC industry from those loose handling guidelines into a really strict mandatory enforcement regime.
Meaning they actually check now.
Right. It's all about strict leak rates and chemical recycling.
See, it's one thing for the EPA to write a massive rulebook in Washington. But, I want to know what happens in my backyard.
Sure.
If my AC breaks tomorrow, why can't the tech just top it off like he did 5 years ago? Like, what is the actual mechanical reality here?
Well, it all comes down to a brand new EPA residential leak rate threshold. The new rule states that if a residential system has a leak rate of 10% of the system's total charge per year.
10%.
Yeah, 10%. If it hits that, it is now a mandatory repair scenario.
Wow. Okay. So what does that look like in practice?
To put Dave Hartzell's math to work here, a typical home AC system holds about 6 pounds of refrigerant.
Just 6 pounds.
Just 6.
Ah.
So if your system loses more than 10% of that, which is, just over half a pound, the technician is now federally required to physically find and fix that leak.
Wait, half a pound? That is practically nothing.
It's tiny, but if they absolutely cannot fix it, they have to rigorously document exactly why it can't be fixed and file official paperwork on it.
Contrast that with the old 2019 mindset.
Yeah.
Back then, a technician would come to your house, slap their gauges on the unit, see the pressure was a little low, and just blast a pound or two of refrigerant into the system.
Yeah, in and out in 20 minutes.
Right. You paid your $150, they drove off, and you had cold air until it leaked out again the following summer.
Exactly.
So, wait, why does the federal government care about a tiny half-pound leak in my backyard? It feels incredibly intrusive. Like, if I want to just keep paying to refill my own system every year, why shouldn't I be allowed to do that?
To really answer that, we have to look inside the machine itself to understand the mechanical damage a slow leak actually causes.
Okay, so it's not just about the ozone.
No, it's about the machine. When your AC system is constantly undercharged, it undergoes severe mechanical stress. The compressor is basically the heart of your entire air conditioning system.
Right.
Its job is to pump that refrigerant vapor, compressing it so it can release heat outside. But what most people don't realize is that the refrigerant isn't just there to cool your house. It actually cools the compressor motor itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it carries the specialized oil that lubricates the compressor's internal moving parts.
Oh, wow. Wait, so it's acting like motor oil in a car engine at the exact same time?
Exactly like that. It's the coolant and the oil all mixed together. So when you are running a system that is starved of a half pound or a pound of refrigerant, that compressor has to work much, much harder to reach the target temperature on your thermostat.
Because it's just pushing empty air, basically.
Right. It runs for much longer cycles, but more importantly, it runs incredibly hot because it doesn't have enough cool gas returning to it to cool it down.
Oh, that makes sense.
And because of that heat, that internal lubrication starts to break down. The metal parts literally start grinding.
I see. So it's not just about the cooling power dropping off inside the house. You are actually causing physical damage to the motor.
You're slowly killing it.
You know, think about it like this. The old 2019 mindset was basically like a doctor prescribing you painkillers every single year for a broken arm instead of just putting a cast on it to let it heal.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. Like the pain goes away temporarily, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but the underlying break is still there. It's grinding away, getting worse every single time you use it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that analogy nails the reality of the situation perfectly. That underlying damage is exactly why the government is stepping in and why you should actually want them to.
Yeah, because it's saving the machine.
Exactly. The old model rewarded the lazy contractor. It kept homeowners totally addicted to these cheap annual top-offs. But behind the scenes, your electric bill was quietly creeping up every single month.
Because the starving compressor was pulling more electricity.
Yes. It pulls more and more electricity to try and do its job. And eventually, because it was running hot and grinding without proper lubrication, it would just seize up entirely.
Boom. Dead system.
Dead system. So you thought you were saving money by paying $150 a year for a quick top-off, but you were actually driving your system straight toward a catastrophic $3,500 compressor failure.
Wow.
So the new EPA rules essentially force an honest conversation up front by making that lazy Band-Aid fix illegal.
Okay, so it is literally a federal violation in 2026 to just refill a system leaking over that 10% threshold without addressing the root cause.
That's the law now.
But if the law now forces technicians to actually find and fix these leaks, we have to talk about the cost of the chemicals themselves. Because this is the other half of the AIM Act, right?
That's a huge part of it.
It's not just about stopping the leaks. It's about radically restricting the actual supply of the refrigerant itself.
Yeah, the new rules have drastically slashed the virgin production caps for HFCs.
And when you say virgin, you mean?
We mean newly manufactured, never-before-used chemical refrigerant. By artificially choking off the supply of new R-410A, the EPA has caused the price to absolutely skyrocket.
I mean, basic supply and demand, right?
Exactly. Dave points out a staggering jump in the interview. He says R-410A used to cost a contractor around $30 to $40 a pound at the distributor level.
Okay.
Now, as of 2026, we are seeing prices well over $100 a pound in most markets.
Over $100 a pound, and we just established a standard home system holds around 6 pounds.
Yep.
So what used to be a very minor $30 line item on your invoice could now easily be several $100s just for the gas alone.
Just for the gas. But that supply restriction is only step one. The ETA didn't just cut production, they instituted a mandatory reclamation cycle.
Okay, how does that work?
So when a technician services your system today, or say they remove a dead AC unit from your property, they cannot just open a valve and vent the old gas into the atmosphere.
Right, because of the ozone.
Right. They have to capture every single ounce of it in a specialized recovery cylinder using a heavy-duty vacuum pump.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this whole concept of reclaimed refrigerant sounds almost like science fiction to me.
It is a massive logistical operation.
Yeah.
After the technician recovers that gas from your backyard, they take it back to their shop, they consolidate it, and then they have to ship it in specialized tanks to an EPA-certified reclaimer facility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that facility takes this dirty, mixed, used gas and runs it through these massive distillation towers. They separate out the oils, the moisture, the acids, and they chemically scrub it until it meets the exact purity specifications of virgin, newly manufactured refrigerant.
That sounds expensive.
It is. And here's the kicker. The new rules dictate that a growing percentage of the R-410A that goes back into residential systems for repairs must be this reclaimed material.
So we are essentially creating a forced circular economy of recycled AC juice.
Yes, exactly.
Which, I mean, it sounds fantastic for the ozone layer and reducing global warming.
Yeah.
But I have to play devil's advocate for your wallet
You're
here.
core for it.
Doesn't all this extra shipping, capturing, purifying, and specialized handling, doesn't that just mean way more labor costs for me? Like, as the homeowner. Dave breaks down his specific pricing in the interview. He charges a $99 dispatch fee just to park the truck in your driveway.
Right.
Plus a $111 diagnostic fee. Wait, so I'm paying $210 before the guy even picks up a wrench or puts an ounce of gas in my system. How's that better for me?
What's fascinating here is that you are sensing the exact friction point every homeowner is feeling right now.
Oh, I'm feeling it just talking about it.
Yeah. Yes. The upfront service cost is undeniably higher, and contractors have to charge that diagnostic fee to cover the intense labor now required. Finding a micro leak in a residential system isn't like finding a nail in a car tire.
You can't just dunk it in water and look for bubbles.
Exactly. The technician has to use expensive electronic leak detectors that sniff out chemical parts per million in the air. Or they have to inject fluorescent UV dye into your system, let it circulate through the whole house, and then hunt through the dark with a blacklight to find a glowing pinhole in the coils.
That sounds incredibly time-consuming.
It is. Sometimes they even have to pump the system full of high-pressure nitrogen and listen for a microscopic hiss. Add in the time it takes to fill out the newly mandated federal compliance paperwork, and it's a huge labor investment.
Okay, I see why it costs $200 just to diagnose it.
But the trade-off for that $200 upfront fee is a guarantee. You are getting a system that is actually being repaired, not just temporarily patched while it slowly destroys your compressor.
Okay, so R-410A is incredibly expensive now, and finding leaks is a high-tech, mandatory hunt. But what happens if you're sitting in a house with a system from, like, 2008?
Oh, man.
Because a lot of listeners have units that have just been chugging along forever, and those aren't running on R-410A. They're running on the truly ancient stuff, R-22.
Yeah, if your system was installed before 2010, you are almost certainly running on R-22. And that is a really dire situation in 2026.
Why is it so bad?
Because the manufacturing of new R-22 ended completely in the United States back in 2020. It is a fully banned chemical for new production because of its severe ozone-depleting properties.
Meaning the only R-22 left on planet Earth is whatever has been captured, sucked out of old dyeing machines, and reclaimed.
Exactly. That extreme scarcity is exactly what's driving the market into a corner. We're seeing prices well north of $200 a pound for reclaimed R-22.
$200 a pound.
Yeah. So let's look at the brutal math Dave Hartzell lays out for a homeowner facing a leak in one of these older systems.
Okay, break it down.
First, the technician has to do that extensive search and physically fix the leak, which might run $600 to $1,200 in labor, brazing, and parts.
Right.
Then, they have to recharge the system with that reclaimed R-22. Depending on the size of the leak, that is easily another $500 to $1,000 just for the chemical itself.
You were talking about dropping up to $2,000 into a 15-year-old system.
A system that, because of its age, could easily have its blower motor or its original compressor fail the very next month anyway.
Oh, that's just a nightmare.
Dave calls this the tough decision. You are sinking major cash into totally obsolete technology. The alternative he presents is abandoning the repair and replacing that old, inefficient SEER-10 unit with a modern, highly efficient SEER-216 system.
And what does that run on?
That new system will run on the newest, currently approved refrigerant, which is called R-454B.
Okay, let me stop you right there, because I know exactly what you're thinking if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
A contractor comes out, looks at your AC, and lays out these terrifying numbers.
Yeah.
$2,000 just to fix a leak.
Right.
Then they smoothly suggest a total system replacement, and they just happen to have financing brochures for Synchrony or Wells Fargo ready to go in their clipboard.
It's a classic setup.
Exactly. Isn't any rational person just going to assume they're being scammed? That this is just a high-pressure sales tactic dressed up as a legal requirement to force you to buy a whole new system?
It is the most natural reaction in the world, especially given the history of the HVAC industry, which has definitely had its share of shady operators.
For sure.
But understanding the mechanics of the federal law really empowers you to see past the sticker shock. This isn't a scam. It's objective mathematical reality driven by chemical scarcity.
Because of the ban.
Yes. Think about the massive logistical operation we just talked about. Because no new R-22 has been made since 2020, every single drop in existence has to be painstakingly hunted down, extracted with heavy vacuum pumps, transported in specialized tanks, chemically scrubbed at a facility, and resold.
Right.
That incredibly labor-intensive process is why it costs $200 a pound. The technician isn't making up the price of the chemical, and they certainly aren't making up the federal ban on just topping it off. They're just presenting you with the actual market-driven costs of keeping obsolete machinery alive.
It's like trying to find authentic replacement parts for a discontinued sports car from the 1980s.
Perfect comparison.
You know, you can do it, but you're going to pay a massive premium to specialty dealers just for the privilege of keeping a classic running.
That's exactly the dynamic. And there is a major silver lining in these EPA rules regarding that new replacement refrigerant, R-454B, that homeowners really need to know about.
Oh, what's that?
So R-454B belongs to a class of chemicals called A2L refrigerants. The 2L designates that it is mildly flammable under certain conditions.
Wait. Flammable.
Mildly flammable, yes, but because of that specific chemical makeup, federal law requires special certified handling. You can't use old tools. Technicians need specialized spark-proof tools, specific gauges, and unique vacuum pumps to prevent any risk of ignition during installation.
Oh, wow. So you can't just have a guy who watched a YouTube video buy a tank out of the back of a van and start hooking up his old gauges.
Exactly. The barrier to entry for servicing modern equipment has been significantly raised. This actively protects you as the consumer. It weeds out the bottom of the barrel, uncertified technicians who don't have the capital to invest in the right spark-proof tools or the discipline to get the specific A2L training.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, if someone is legally and safely installing a new R-454B system in your home today, they have proven a much higher baseline level of professional competence.
That's a huge point. The regulations act as a natural filter for quality.
Exactly.
So armed with all these legal mechanics and economic realities, let's give you a practical, actionable playbook. It's the middle of July, your AC just started blowing warm air, and the technician pulls into your driveway. What exactly do you do to make sure you're protected?
Dave lays out 3 critical questions every single homeowner must ask their technician before they even open their toolkit.
Okay, let's hear them.
Question number 1. Are you EPA Section 608 certified? This is the fundamental baseline legal certification for handling refrigerants in the United States. Any legitimate legal technician will have this card in their wallet and should be happy to confirm it.
Right, but it's like asking a doctor if they actually went to medical school. If they hesitate or get defensive, you just show them the door.
Exactly. Question number 2. Are you going to do a leak search or just add refrigerant?
So what does this all mean? If you ask that question and the tech shrugs and says, oh, I'm just going to add some Freon and see how it holds,
Then run.
that is the ultimate 2026 red flag. They are either completely ignorant of the AIM Act laws or they are actively choosing to ignore them. And that puts both you and your expensive equipment at massive risk.
You absolutely must demand the diagnostic, which leads directly to question number 3. Will I get the leak location and the proposed repair in writing?
Oh, in writing?
Yes. Do not accept a vague answer like, yeah, there's a leak somewhere in the indoor coil. You want it documented. Where exactly is the pinhole? What mechanical steps will it take to fix it? And what is the exact cost of the reclaimed chemical required?
Now, just to be totally thorough here, are there any scenarios where a simple top-off without a massive diagnostic hunt is actually legitimate and legal under the new rules?
Yes. The EPA does allow 3 very specific exceptions.
Okay.
First, if you have a brand new system being installed and the technician needs to make a tiny micro adjustment to the charge to dial in the factor efficiency.
That makes sense.
Second, if you just had a major repair where the copper lines were physically cut open and brazed shut, and they are adding refrigerant back to bring it up to the manufacturer's specification.
Got it.
And third, certain highly specific commercial applications like massive industrial warehouses where there are micro leaks and the cost of tearing apart the building infrastructure vastly exceeds the environmental cost of monitoring it.
But notice what is completely missing from that list. Your typical residential house where the unit is 5 years old and just slowly stopped cooling.
Right.
That scenario demands a thorough mechanical repair.
Federal law, the skyrocketing cost of chemical refrigerants, and basic mechanical common sense all finally align on one undeniable truth. You have to fix the actual problem instead of continuously feeding the leak.
To quickly recap our journey today, The days of handing a guy $150 to temporarily freeze your living room for one more summer are officially over.
Long gone.
The AIM Act and the October 2024 EPA regulations have completely changed the landscape of home cooling, but you are now fully equipped. You know how the compressor relies on that refrigerant for lubrication, why chemical prices are soaring through the roof, and why you need to demand written diagnostics, actual leak searches, and EPA 608 certified expertise the next time your unit fails.
Yeah, you really have the power now.
By understanding the mechanics of these rules, you aren't just saving the ozone layer. You are actively protecting your $3,000 compressor and your bank account from lazy contractors.
This raises an important question, though, for the future of how we live.
Oh,
We've watched the government phase out R-22. Now we're watching them heavily restrict and recycle R-410A. We're moving to slightly flammable R-454B. If the regulations keep tightening on these chemicals, if we keep discovering that the gases we use to stay cool are too harmful, too difficult to reclaim, or too volatile to manage, will this endless cycle of new, increasingly complex chemical refrigerants ever stop? Could the future of keeping our homes cool eventually have to move away from these compressed chemical gases entirely?
It makes you wonder, what does air conditioning look like in 20 years if we can't use traditional refrigerants at all? Something to think about the next time you hear your AC kick on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.